My name is Victoria Clare Bernie, and I live in, my studio is based in Edinburgh, and I work there, but most of my practice takes place in the landscapes of northern and western Scotland. I studied art at Edinburgh University and Edinburgh College of Art, and then subsequently did postgraduate study in architecture, of all things, at McGill University in Montreal. When I was at college, I trained in printmaking, so lithography mainly, stone lithography, plate lithography and etching. And in retrospect, I can see that that matches perfectly with a very analytical mind and a process-driven way of working, because with all the print media, well, most of the print media, you layer upon layer upon layer, and things take a long time to appear as an image. After doing printmaking, and probably still within the frame of being in formal education, I moved more and more towards installation and drawing. Drawing's always been an underlay of everything that I do. Moving to Canada and studying, I moved even more into installation and making furniture and photography, which still maintains that link with printmaking. And then, when coming back to the UK, I started painting with oil paints, which I'd never done before. But I never ever made single images, I always made multiples. So, never been able to make one thing on its own, always wanted to fill my vision, fill my peripheral vision with something, and I think that was a precursor of being interested ultimately in making moving image work. And for me specifically video, not film. I did do one little run of Super 8 at the very beginning because I inherited a camera, but I knew that video was the medium that I wanted to use specifically. Slow water has had a really long gestation. I first mentioned or started to articulate that idea in 2005, and it was linked really strongly to an interest I have in hydroelectric schemes, which are laden with, I suppose, controversial associations for people because of the way that they look to some people in the landscape, but I've always found them fascinating architectures, and I suppose I stepped back from that a little bit and just looked at the form of them. So in 2005, I started thinking about making a piece of work which would require me to spend a considerable amount of time in the landscape, because the way that I'd worked previously was really short fieldwork trips, which it's being pragmatic. When you have to hire a car and you have other jobs that you keep going, you tend to go, I used to go for little bullets of time, and there wasn't much point in going when it was raining, so I used to watch the weather all the time, which meant that I had a very distorted view of the landscape of northern western Scotland, because I always went on the very few sunny days that actually exist. So slow water began to gestate, as I say, over time, and it took a number of different forms, and I was always trying to find a way to be in the landscape, to watch minute change over time, as opposed to these bullets of movement which seemed very disconnected and fragmented. And I sought support for this, and I was really lucky because I got stages of support, which I think really helped develop the project. If I got them, I suppose if I got money immediately and gone and made it, it would be a completely different thing. But it took me a long time to find support for it. Over time, I began to realise that possibly the best way of going forward was going to be a residency. So I made an application to the Leverhulme Trust, which does visual artist residencies. And I was interested in being in the landscape over time and in some way framing or constraining or directing the way that I looked at the landscape, because you can imagine it's a massive subject which you can't actually handle. Well, I can't handle, I can't find an edge to it. So I have consistently sought other disciplines that will frame it for me. And I was interested in the idea of marine science and freshwater science framing it for me, because they're really strict and they have a very limited, specific set of questions in order to make progress with the ideas that they're dealing with. And I felt very comfortable with that way of thinking. So I got the idea to go to SAMS, which is the Scottish Association for Marine Science Research Laboratory, which is at Dunstaffnage, which is an old civil service marine lab, which has become, I think it's partly privately funded now. And it has a body of remarkable individuals there, international scientists at the absolute edge, the critical edge of research science in the oceans. And I got in touch with two scientists there specifically because I decided again I wanted to control it, because you can, in a residency, you can go in and sort of respond to a situation, or I think you can really take control of it from the very beginning and say what you want and how you want to do it, and that's the way that it works best for me. And I went away for 10 months forgive me, total immersion in the subject. So I had a studio on site and lived in this landscape that I've been fascinated by for such a long time, and was able to see daily change, which was what I was most interested in, because I didn't know how I could, literally didn't know what I was missing until I saw it. And the project itself was an attempt to do something which I knew was impossible from the very beginning, which was to map the present condition of water in Scotland. And that comes very much from, well, as I said, I like to work with the lens of other disciplines, because that seems to provide a structure that allows me to see one or two things clearly as opposed to a generalised view. I've been working with the landscapes of northern Scotland from, I suppose, 1997-8 onwards. And each time I've gone in with a different frame. So I've gone in with those lenses because I can't see how one could describe or attempt to represent a place like the landscapes, plural, of Scotland without some kind of constraint, because they're in such a relatively small geographic area. They change vastly. If you're in southern Argyll, you're in these peculiar flat landscapes of sphagnum moss and tiny hillocks. Then you move north up to Oban and you get extreme but quite tight hills. Then you're up in Fort William, you get Nevis Range. Out to, it's just extraordinary. Just over, I suppose, over 30 to 40 miles, you get a radical change. So, slow water, the idea was to think of one material or substance that I could focus on. And I've always been interested in the patterns that water makes. It's probably more than that. I like the idea of water because it takes the form of the vessel that it's put in. So it always is a registration of where it is. And the idea of mapping the present condition of water in Scotland was impossible, because you can't because the present has passed and it happens at every single scale. But the more that I looked at that, I realised it gave me the opportunity to look at water in industry, water in stewardship, water in chemistry, and water in just pure unmitigated beauty, I suppose, just the remarkable qualities of it. And also, there are all the jokes about the amount of rain, but it's such a saturated landscape, and that's why it's so green and remarkable to look at. The way I work doesn't rest purely on the video practice alone, because that would lead to being overtly precious about an individual activity. I like to make a world of the work, so I tend to work on many things at the same time in order to alleviate overt carefulness and preciousness. So I will be making video works, but different kinds of video works. So there's the World of Wonderlands, which are very much almost fictionalised landscapes, because they are footage from one place quite often, melded with footage from another place, and then a soundtrack which is layered from many places and could have been recorded entirely separately. I will also be drawing, and I draw in a very abstracted way, pencil on paper. But I also draw, I suppose it's called observationally or realistically. I do watercolours, which is surprising to quite a few people, but I use these, they're all different ways of telling the same story and keeping it all humming at the same time, so that if I'm in the middle of an edit and I don't know what to do and I can't move, I move into the world of telling the same story or going through the same set of questions in another medium, and it maintains a conversation. I also do photographic work, and that seems at the moment to fall within two camps. One form is, probably three camps. One form is literally documenting, which I'm beginning to realise is more or less storyboarding. So I'll go on a walk and I'll take photographs in a sequence, and that will give me some sense of the sort of camera angles I might use, and narrative in inverted commas I might set up. Another way is looking for very particular conditions. So the digital drawings that run through photographs that are in the gallery, they are very much paying attention to the minutiae of a particular landscape. So looking at something inconsequential closely, because it's going to provide the underlay for another layer of working. So it's not purely a photographic image, it's something that's worked into with a drawing. And the third form is the portraits, which I find most difficult to explain, because they're documenting the thing that is beautiful, and I find the concept of something being simply beautiful quite uncomfortable as a reason for making, because I think most people who are trained in the visual arts and have taken to their training well can make things that are formally beautiful, because there's a balance, a degree of pigmentation, of light fall that creates images that are sympathetic, and I often want to get beyond that. I don't think the portraits, the photographic portraits that I make, fall into that area, but I find them much more difficult to talk about. They really are very much a reaction to a situation.